The derelict starship Meridian's Pride groaned like a dying beast as Caden navigated its twisted corridors, his worn plasma cutter humming in the stale air. 16 hours into the salvage run, and the old cruiser was slowly yielding its secrets. Metal beams creaked overhead, their structural integrity compromised by decades of cosmic radiation and micrometeorite impacts. His calloused fingers tracing along a bulkhead, feeling for the telltale vibrations that indicated valuable components. Beyond the gray eyes that had seen too many wrecks narrowed as he detected the subtle hum of active power cells, rare finds in hulks this old. His dark hair, perpetually tousled from working in cramped spaces, caught on a protruding wire as he squeezed through a partially collapsed doorway. The corridor ahead stretched into darkness, emergency lighting long since failed. Caden's headlamp cut through the gloom, illuminating twisted metal and floating debris. He paused, head tilting in that characteristic gesture, as his experienced ear caught something unusual. The whisper of recycled air moving through functional life support systems. "Impossible," he muttered, checking his scanner. The readings were erratic, but definitely showed atmosphere and minimal power in the forward sections. Dead ships didn't maintain life support for 30 years. A shadow flicked across his peripheral vision. Caden spun, plasma cutter raised, just as a figure emerged from the darkness with fluid grace. She was unlike anything in his experience, humanoid, but decidedly alien, with striking tiger stripe markings covering her lithe frame. Amber eyes gleamed with predatory intelligence as they sized him up, and her long tail lashed behind her with barely contained energy. "Human," she said, her voice a low growl that seemed to vibrate through the metal around them. "You shouldn't be here." Before Caden could respond, she lunged with inhuman speed, clawed hands reaching for his throat. His salvager instincts kicked in. He dropped low, swept her legs, and rolled aside as she recovered with cat-like agility. The plasma cutter hummed to life between them. "Easy there, Stripes," he said, keeping his voice steady despite his racing pulse. "I'm just here for salvage. No need for a grinding shriek of tortured metal." Before he could finish, she cut him off. The beam directly above them buckled, sparks raining down as structural supports failed in a cascade. The alien's eyes widened as tons of twisted steel began to fall. Without thinking, Caden lunged forward, tackling her away from the collapse zone while simultaneously jamming his plasma cutter against a support beam, using its magnetic clamps to create a crude brace. The makeshift support held, leaving them pressed together in a pocket of safety as debris crashed around them. Her breath hitched against his neck, warm and rapid. This close, he could see the intricate patterns of her markings, the way her furred ears twitched with each sound of settling metal. Her amber eyes searched his face with an intensity that made his skin prickle. "You saved me," she said, voice softer now but no less dangerous. "Why?" Seemed like the thing to do. His gray eyes met hers steadily, unflinching despite her proximity and the implied threat of her claws. "Name's Caden. You?" She studied him for a long moment, as if trying to solve a complex equation. "Ivara," she finally replied. "I hunt those who run." "Bounty hunter," he nodded, pieces clicking into place. "What's your quarry doing on a dead ship?" "Following the same trail you are, salvager." Her tail coiled slightly, brushing against his leg. "But this wreck holds more than spare parts." The emergency lighting flickered, casting shifting shadows across her striped features. Caden became acutely aware of how their bodies fit together in the confined space, her alien heat warming him through his salvage suit. Whatever she was hunting, whatever brought her to this graveyard of ships, it was about to become his problem too. And somehow, looking into those burning amber eyes, he didn't mind at all. The compartment sealed with a hydraulic hiss, trapping them in a space barely large enough for two people. Emergency klaxons wailed somewhere in the ship's depths as backup systems struggled to maintain hull integrity. The air hung thick with metallic dust and the ozone scent of fried electronics. Ivara's tail lashed with barely contained frustration as she barked orders at the sealed hatch. Emergency protocols should have opened all passages. This section should be accessible. Her claws scraped against the metal as she searched for manual overrides, the sound setting Caden's teeth on edge. Should and are two different things, he replied calmly, kneeling beside the damaged control panel. His scarred hands moved with practiced precision, tracing circuit pathways with the same care another man might use to examine a lover's face. Looks like someone jury-rigged the lockdown protocols. Recent work, too. She whirled on him, amber eyes flashing. How recent? For days, perhaps a week, his fingers found a loose connection, testing the current with a small diagnostic tool. A professional job, but rushed. Your quarry, Jackson Thorne, a human smuggler wanted across 3 systems. Her voice carried the weight of a personal vendetta. He's been using derelicts to hide his cargo transfers. Thought he was clever. Caden absorbed this information while working, his gray eyes focused on the delicate repair. The woman, Ivara, prowled the small space like a caged predator, her agitation evident in every movement. Her clawed hand suddenly gripped his shoulder, testing his resolve. Can you open it, or not? The pressure of her grip increased, not quite painful, but definitely threatening. He didn't flinch, didn't pause in his work. Give me a minute. Something in his steady tone made her release him, though she remained close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from her alien form. The tiger stripes that marked her skin seemed to shift in the dim light, creating mesmerizing patterns that drew the eye. The hatch control sparked, then hummed to life with a grinding protest. The door began to cycle open, revealing the corridor beyond. As they prepared to move, their bodies brushed in the tight space, her hip against his thigh, her arm across his back as she reached for her weapon. Her pulse quickened where her wrist pressed against his arm, a rapid flutter that spoke of more than just anticipation for the hunt. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility, before duty reasserted itself. This way, she growled, but her voice had lost some of its edge. They moved through the ship's bowels like ghosts, Ivara's predatory grace complementing Caden's careful navigation. The Meridian's pride revealed more secrets with each chamber, signs of recent habitation, modified systems, and most telling of all, traces of exotic cargo that had been hastily removed. He's been using this ship as a way station, Caden observed, running his hand over scratches in the deck plates where heavy containers had been dragged. Smart. Old derelicts don't show up on most patrol scans. Not smart enough. Ivara's tail twitched with anticipation. His trail ends here. But even as she spoke, Caden noticed other details. The way certain passages had been recently reinforced. The subtle modifications to the ship's sensor array. This wasn't just a temporary hideout. Someone had invested serious time and resources into making this wreck functional. Ivara, he said quietly, I think your smuggler friend might be more than he appears. She paused, head cocked, listening to something beyond his human hearing. We're not alone, she whispered. The ship shuddered around them, and somewhere in the distance, they heard the unmistakable sound of docking clamps engaging. Fresh air began to circulate through the corridors, carrying scents that made Ivara's pupils dilate. Thorne's back, she breathed. And for the first time since their meeting, Caden heard something like uncertainty in her voice. Then we'd better be ready for him, he replied, checking his plasma cutter's charge. Whatever they were walking into, they'd face it together. The hunt was about to begin in earnest. The escape pod drifted silently through the debris field, its tiny ion drive pushing them toward another derelict hulk. Caden's hands moved efficiently over the salvaged control panel, integrating components he'd pulled from the Meridian's Pride before Thorne's ship had arrived. The work calmed him, each connection a familiar puzzle to solve. Beside him, Ivara watched with growing fascination. Her initial disdain for human technology had given way to professional interest as she observed his methodical approach. The way his scarred fingers coaxed life from dead circuits spoke of an intuitive understanding that transcended mere training. "Where did you learn to do that?" she asked, her tail curving around her seat with unconscious grace. "Necessity." Caden connected the final power coupling, and the engine hummed with renewed vigor. "Lost my first ship to pirates when I was 17. Had to make do with whatever I could scavenge." "Pirates!" Her amber eyes hardened. What happened to them? Eventually, they made the mistake of attacking a Terran Defense Force convoy. He activated the navigation array, its display casting blue light across both their faces. "Sometimes, the universe handles justice for you." The new derelict resolved on their screens, a massive cargo hauler, her hull cracked but intact. The Fortune's Folly, according to her faded registry markers. She'd been drifting here for decades, another victim of the corporate wars that had left this sector littered with abandoned ships. As they maneuvered closer, Ivara's posture began to soften. The rigid alertness of the hunt gave way to something more relaxed, more natural. Her fingers grazed his neck as she leaned over to examine his work, lingering just long enough to send warmth spreading through his chest. "Your species is adaptable," she murmured, close enough that her breath tickled his ear. "We have to be. The universe offers no quarter for human frailty." They breached the derelict Fortune's Folly through a freight airlock, its artificial gravity a steadfast sentinel after years of silence. The central cargo hold yawned before them, a cavernous expanse reminiscent of a hallowed hall, its skeletal loading tracks vanishing into the gloom overhead. Yet it was not truly empty. As their lights carved through the oppressive darkness, they illuminated an impossible spectacle. A holographic projection shimmering against the distant wall, adorned with alien sigils that pulsed with a soft, azure radiance. The display resolved into a three-dimensional chart, crisscrossed by dozens of illuminated pathways, suggesting intricate transit networks or vital supply lines. "I've never encountered script like this," Cadence murmured, drawn to the display with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Ivara's reaction was visceral. Her ears flattened against her skull, and her tail bristled with agitation. "Those are Cathar glyphs," she breathed, her voice hushed with reverence. "The Lost Fleet, a legend among my people. A Cathvar treasure fleet that vanished during the Succession Wars, laden with the riches of a dozen worlds." A tremor of both yearning and wonder colored her tone. "They say the ships carried crystalline matrices, power sources capable of sustaining entire colonies." Cadence, his analytical mind already at work, studied the chart with renewed intensity. "This is more than a map. It's a cipher. Observe." He traced one of the luminous routes. The paths form a sequence, each vessel's placement dictated by the others. As he spoke, he became acutely aware of Ivara drawing nearer, her alien warmth a subtle presence against his side. Her tail brushed his leg, and when he glanced at her, he found her amber eyes fixed on his profile, their intensity eclipsing any interest in mere treasure. "You perceive order where others see only chaos," she whispered, her voice a low caress. "It's captivating." The air between them thickened, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Then, a distant metallic clang echoed through the ship, the unmistakable sound of another vessel docking. "Thorne," Ivara growled, though the venom had leached from her voice. Something had shifted between them in this echoing sanctuary of forgotten dreams. A subtle barrier had begun to yield. "Then we should download this data and depart," Cadence replied, already retrieving recording devices from his salvage pack. Yet as they worked to capture the holographic schematics, their thoughts drifted beyond the allure of lost riches. The quest that had united them was subtly transforming, evolving into something neither had anticipated, something that might prove far more precious than any legendary hoard. The gateway to the treasure vault coalesced before them, an apparition from a fevered dream, a crystalline portal embedded within the very core of the Fortune's Folly's primary cargo computer. Alien geometries writhed within its transparent structure, and Guardian drones flickered in and out of phase, their energy signatures barely registering on human sensors. Cathvar phase tech, Ivara breathed, her professional admiration momentarily battling with a primal predatory instinct. The stories were true. Cadence, his mind dissecting the drone's patrol patterns, noted their predictable rotation. A 47-second cycle with a 3-second vulnerability window at the entry point, he calculated aloud. Before Ivara could react, the piercing whine of plasma rifles shattered the stillness of the cargo bay. Marcus Vega's crew had arrived, 6 battle-hardened mercenaries led by a man whose scarred visage bore testament to countless violent encounters. Thorne's new associates, it seemed, and their intentions were far from amicable. "Stand down, Hunter," Vega's voice boomed, reverberating through the vastness. "The human comes with us, and you will walk away." Ivara responded with a low growl that seemed to vibrate through the ship's metal hull. Her claws extended, catching the vault's ethereal light, and her tail lashed with deadly intent. "I don't think so," Cadence said quietly, his hand already reaching for the improvised explosive he'd fashioned from salvaged power cells and unstable plasma conduits. His fingers brushed the detonator, a familiar sensation born of 16 years of salvage work and the necessity of creative problem-solving. The ensuing blast sent debris and mercenaries flying with equal abandon. Vega dove for cover behind a piece of loading equipment while his crew scrambled to regain their footing. In the ensuing chaos, Cadence seized Ivara's hand, pulling her towards the vault's entrance. Her eyes, wide with a mixture of shock and admiration, met his. "You could have killed us all." Calculated risk. His gray eyes held hers steadily. "I'm good with numbers." The moment of vulnerability fractured something between them. As plasma fire erupted around their position, Ivara pulled him close, her alien strength surprisingly gentle. Her voice trembled as she pressed against him in the vault's dim glow. "My clan is dying," she whispered, the words torn from a place of deep anguish. "The Cathar matrices are not mere treasures. They are the sole power source that can revive our homeworld. The corporate wars poisoned our sun." Her voice trailed off, leaving the unspoken devastation hanging in the air. Caden understood this wasn't merely about bounty or personal glory. It was about survival. "Then we get them," he stated, his hands finding her waist with an ease that felt as natural as breathing. "All of them." Just then, the vault's Guardian drones began their programmed cycle. Caden's mind raced, calculating entry vectors, timing sequences, and probability matrices for infiltration. Yet his body was acutely aware of Ivara's presence, the way her breathing deepened, how her amber eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. They leaned closer, drawn by forces neither fully comprehended, her lips nearly touching his, when Vega's renewed assault fractured the moment. "Go!" Ivor snarled, her predatory nature surging back. "I'll handle the mercenaries." But Caden was already in motion, his focus narrowing on the vault's defenses with laser intensity. He'd discovered a flaw in the drone's pattern, a resonance frequency within their shielding that could be exploited with a specific harmonic disruption. His modified plasma cutter could generate precisely that frequency. As he worked, he could hear Ivara engaging Vega's crew with deadly efficiency. Her alien speed and strength transformed the cargo bay into a hunting ground, and the mercenaries quickly understood why her people were feared throughout the galaxy. The vault door shimmered and began to dissolve, revealing chambers beyond that pulsed with crystalline light. But even as success neared, Caden found his attention divided. One part of him cataloged the treasure that could save Avara's people, while another pondered the way she'd trembled in his arms and what that might signify for their intertwined futures. The treasure vault's interior defied human comprehension. Chambers that seemed to exist in folded space, walls that shifted between transparency and opacity based on the observer's angle. Crystalline matrices lined the surfaces like frozen starlight, each humming with barely contained energy that made the very air taste of potential. Ivara stood transfixed in the center, her tiger-striped form dwarfed by the Kethvar technology surrounding them. Tears traced paths down her face, her usual predatory composure fractured to reveal something achingly vulnerable. "It's real," she whispered, her voice breaking. "All of it." Caden moved to her side, his salvager's eye absorbing the treasure trove, while his heart focused on the woman beside him. "Tell me about your clan." She leaned into him, seeking solace from the human who had somehow become her anchor in this tempest of revelation. "The Thaknari were warriors once, before the corporations arrived. We hired ourselves out as mercenaries, thinking we could play their games and win." Her laugh was bitter. "They used us to fight their wars, then abandoned us when the fighting moved elsewhere." Her hands found his, fingers intertwining with desperate need. "The toxins they dumped into our system are killing our star. My people have maybe 50 years before our homeworld becomes uninhabitable. These matrices, they're the only power source strong enough to cleanse the stellar core." "How many of your people?" Caden asked softly. 12 million, she admitted, her voice cracking. "Including my daughter." The admission struck him like a physical blow. She'd never mentioned a child, never hinted at the personal stakes driving her quest. "What's her name?" "Kira," she whispered. "She's 7 by your calendar. Still believes her mother can fix anything." Ivara's tail coiled around his leg, an unconscious gesture of intimacy. "I made her a promise before." Before Caden could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the vault's crystalline chambers. Vega's survivors had regrouped, and this time they'd brought reinforcements, including Jackson Thorne himself. Thorne was a lean man with the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Touching story," Thorne called out, his voice carrying clearly through the strange acoustics. "But I'm afraid the Kethvar crystals have already been sold. Nothing personal. You understand?" Ivara's transformation was instantaneous. Grief ignited into fury, vulnerability shifting to deadly purpose. But as she prepared to launch herself at their enemies, Caden's hand on her wrist stopped her. "Not yet," he murmured, his mind a whirl of possibilities. "Trust me." The decoy plan formed in his head with crystalline clarity. The vault's own defensive systems could be turned against intruders if someone with the precise knowledge triggered them at exactly the right moment. His hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer as he whispered instructions. "The resonance frequency that opened the door works both ways. I can make the chamber believe we're unauthorized intruders, but we'll need to be in exactly the right position when the defenses activate." She understood immediately, her tactical mind grasping the implications. They would have mere seconds to coordinate, moments to make it work. As she nodded her agreement, her body pressed against his with desperate intensity, their lips nearly touching, when Thorne's impatient voice cut through. With delays no longer a factor, the imperative shifted. Secure the human, for his survival held greater value than any fleeting prize. Though the enchantment shattered, an undeniable transformation occurred between them as they braced for the unimaginable. Caden acutely felt Ivor's profound trust, the chilling realization that 12 million lives, including a vulnerable 7-year-old girl, hinged on the ensuing moments. "Together?" he inquired. "Together," she affirmed, her singular word a sacred pledge that overshadowed the glittering riches surrounding them. The assault commenced, but this time their efforts converged, his sharp intellect complementing her deadly prowess, their nascent affection solidifying their shared purpose. Ahead, a spectral armada of broken warships lay strewn like a graveyard of metal, their fractured hulls catching the starlight in desolate patterns. The colossal stellar remnant, a dreadnought savaged in the Kuthvar War, commanded their attention, its superstructure contorted into grotesque shapes by reality-rending weaponry. As plasma bolts seared their escape pod, Thorne's refitted freighter, the Sovereign's Edge, unleashed a torrent of fire into the wreckage. The once smuggler, now a mercenary, had deployed professional assassins and military-grade armaments to seize the crystalline treasures. Close behind, Elena Cross, at the helm of the gunship Wraith's Bite, and her twin brother Rico, piloting the assault craft Storm's End, arrived. "They've trapped us," Avara growled, her claws scoring the pod's acceleration couch as another near miss sent them careening through the void. Kaidan's hands danced across the controls, pushing their improvised systems beyond all safe parameters. The engines shrieked in protest, yet held through sheer willpower and inspired engineering. "Not yet," he countered, expertly maneuvering the pod through a breach in the dreadnought's hull, using its immense bulk as a shield against the onslaught. The interior passage presented a hellish tableau of twisted metal and frozen atmosphere, illuminated by emergency lights that cast ghastly shadows as they navigated by instinct and scanner data. "There," Avara gestured towards the ship's former medical bay. "That section still has power." Plasma fire relentlessly pursued them, melting bulkheads and triggering chain reactions within the ship's decaying systems. Corridors that had stood for decades began to disintegrate as thermal shock fractured their weakened supports. Kaidan hauled Avara through a hatch just as the passage behind them collapsed like brittle paper. His muscles strained against the artificial gravity, flickering between normal and crushing force. But he held fast. Her claws dug into his back through his salvage suit, not in aggression, but in a desperate need for connection as their world crumbled. They tumbled into the medical bay's central chamber, the hatch sealing behind them with a final, resonant clang. Emergency atmosphere hissed from backup tanks, and the light stabilized into a warm, amber glow, offering a semblance of welcome after the preceding chaos. For a suspended moment, they clung to each other, their ragged breaths mingling in the profound quiet. Avara's head rested against his chest, her furred ears twitching to the rhythm of his heartbeat. The adrenaline that had propelled their escape transmuted into something new, a profound longing that had simmered since their initial encounter. "Kaidan," she whispered, his name a reverent plea on her alien lips. As she lifted her gaze to his, her amber eyes swam with raw desire. The kiss that followed was an inevitable, elemental fusion of two souls finding solace amidst the devastation. Her alien warmth enveloped him, and he surrendered to her taste, her body molding against his with an exquisite, perfect synchronicity. Outside, Thorne's ships continued their predatory hunt through the debris field, but within their tiny sanctuary, time seemed to stand still. Kaidan's fingers traced the intricate patterns of Avara's markings, mesmerized by their ethereal luminescence. "Your daughter," he murmured, reluctant to break the spell, but compelled to acknowledge the profound connection they shared. "We will know her," Avara replied, her tail wrapping possessively around his waist. "Her mother fought for her. We will know that in this vast, cold universe, people can find each other against all odds." The medical bay's sensors detected approaching movement, likely boarding parties intent on finishing what their ships had begun. Yet in these stolen moments, entwined in each other's arms amidst the rescued crystalline artifacts, nothing else mattered. "Whatever comes next," Kaidan stated, his gaze earnest, "I want you to know." She silenced him with another kiss, fierce and claiming. "I know," she whispered against his lips. "I feel it too." The sound of cutting torches grew closer, their sanctuary's safety rapidly diminishing, but they had found something irreplaceable. This worth fighting for, worth dying for, if necessary. And in the vast, cold void of space, that was a kind of miracle all its own. The vault's golden walls pulsed with harmonic resonance as Cadence's jury-rigged device interfaced with the Cuthvar lock mechanism. Ancient crystals sang in frequencies that bypassed human hearing, speaking directly to the nervous system, crafting a symphony of pure mathematics that made reality itself seem more vivid, more alive. His scarred fingers danced across the control interface, translating human technology into something the alien systems could understand. The device, cobbled together from salvaged quantum processors and theoretical xenoarchaeology he'd absorbed during his years among the derelicts, hummed with increasing intensity as it found the resonance key. "There," he breathed, stepping back as the massive door began to iris open with perfect silence. The chamber beyond defied description. Crystalline artifacts floated in zero-gravity suspension, each one a masterwork of Cathar engineering that made even their most advanced technology seem primitive. Power matrices the size of his fist contained enough energy to fuel entire star systems. Data crystals held the compressed knowledge of a civilization that had mastered space-time itself. But Cadence's attention was captured by Avara's reaction. She stood transfixed at the threshold, her tiger-striped form trembling with emotion as she gazed upon salvation for her people. The amber eyes that had first looked at him with predatory suspicion now reflected wonder, hope, and something deeper that made his chest tighten. "It's everything we dreamed," she whispered, then turned to him with an intensity that took his breath away. "You did this. You made this possible." Her hands roamed across his chest, claiming him with desperate hunger. The rational part of his mind cataloged the treasure surrounding them. Enough wealth to buy entire planets. Technology that could reshape the galaxy. But his body responded only to the alien woman whose life he'd somehow become entangled with. She silenced him with a kiss that tasted of starlight and promises. Her lips were soft, despite her predatory nature, and when her tongue touched his, he felt something fundamental shift inside him. This wasn't just desire or adrenaline. This was recognition, the sole, deep acknowledgement that he'd found his match in the most unlikely person imaginable. Her tail coiled around his legs, pulling him deeper into the chamber as they kissed with increasing desperation. The crystalline artifacts cast prismatic light across their joined forms, painting them in colors that had no names in any human language. "My clan has rituals," she murmured against his throat, her voice husky with need. "Sacred bonds forged in moments of triumph. But this," her claws traced gentle patterns on his skin, "this is beyond ritual. This is choosing each other, against all logic, all probability." Cadence's hands found the exotic curves of her alien form, marveling at the way her markings seemed to pulse with bioluminescent fire under his touch. She was like nothing in his experience, fierce and tender, predatory and vulnerable, a living contradiction that somehow made perfect sense. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," he admitted, his gray eyes serious as they searched her face. "Never thought I'd want to." "Human males are supposed to be intimidated by warrior females," she teased, but her voice carried an edge of old pain. "I'm not most human males." His smile was gentle, but sure. "And you're not like anyone else in the galaxy." The sound of approaching ships echoed through the crystalline chamber. Thorn and his allies, no doubt drawn by the vault's activation. But for this moment, surrounded by the wealth of ages and the promise of salvation for her people, nothing existed except the two of them. Their kiss deepened, becoming something primal and claiming. This was more than attraction, more than convenience born of shared danger. This was the universe's way of balancing scales. Two lost souls finding completion in each other's arms. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ivara's eyes held a new light. "Whatever comes next," she said softly, "you are mine, Caden of Earth, and I am yours." "Forever," he agreed, sealing the vow with another kiss among the singing crystals. The sound of cutting torches grew closer, but they faced the approaching danger as one, bonded by choice, strengthened by love, ready to fight for the future they'd claimed together. The vault erupted into chaos as Thorne's assault team breached the final barrier. Elena Cross led the charge, her military-grade battle armor gleaming under the crystalline light as she sprayed plasma fire across the chamber. Behind her came Rico Cross, his heavy weapons specialist gear making him look more machine than man, while Lieutenant Sarah Voss coordinated the attack with tactical precision that spoke of Imperial Special Forces training. "Surrender the matrices and the human lives," Elena commanded, her amplified voice echoing off the crystalline walls. The golden walls echoed, "This is your final ultimatum." Cadence's response was to unleash the trap he'd meticulously crafted since their entrance. His profound grasp of Kethvar engineering, honed by 16 years of ingenious salvage, revealed the vault's true purpose, not merely storage, but a self-preserving weapon. The plunging beams that annihilated the first wave weren't accidental collapses. They were precisely timed, devastating strikes, exploiting every weakness in the attacker's formation. Ancient gravitometric generators, awakened by Cadence's improvised control system, transformed the vault's very structure into a lethal labyrinth. While he orchestrated technological annihilation, Ivara became a phantom of death. She flowed from crystalline spire to levitating relic with impossible grace, her claws finding openings in armored plating with surgical precision. Rico's formidable plasma cannon tracked her every move, yet she remained a step ahead, masterfully using the vault's peculiar geometry to remain unseen. Elena attempted to trap her with intersecting fire, but Ivara's primal instincts turned the very atmosphere into an advantage. She read the humans' subtle body language with uncanny clarity, anticipating their actions before they occurred. Her attacks were fluid and fierce, each one designed to incapacitate rather than kill, as she desired captives who could reveal Thorne's entire operation. "Behind you," Cadence warned, as Voss attempted to flank her with a neural disruptor. Ivara spun mid-air, her tail lashing out to disarm the lieutenant just as her claws etched a precise line across the woman's armor. Voss fell unconscious, but alive, while Ivara landed in a coiled stance, radiating barely suppressed ferocity. Their unified assault left the remaining assailants gasping, their desperation palpable. Elena retreated towards the chamber's exit, her weapons scanning between them, weighing the greater threat. "This engagement is far from over," she spat. "Thorne commands a dozen more vessels en route. You cannot possibly repel them all." "Just watch us," Ivara countered, her body instinctively shielding Cadence as he worked to secure the most vital artifacts. Even as she spoke, her awareness was divided. Cadence's masterful manipulation of the vault's defenses perfectly complemented her own warrior's instinct. His understanding of alien technology bordered on the innate, while her combat prowess provided the crucial edge his strategies demanded. More than that, she felt his presence like a comforting warmth within her mind. Not telepathy, but something profound, a connection forged in their crystalline, claiming that transcended species. She knew when he was in peril, sensing his intentions before they were ever voiced. As Elena withdrew with her surviving soldiers, Ivara moved to Cadence's side, their forms fitting together seamlessly, her alien warmth mingling with his human presence as they surveyed the battlefield they had forged. "How many matrices did you secure?" she inquired, her tail coiling possessively around his waist. 17 primary cores, plus data crystals containing the manufacturing protocols. His gray eyes met hers, alight but with quiet satisfaction. Enough to safeguard your people, with plenty remaining for humanity's future. She leaned into him, her heart pounding, not from the battle, but from the magnitude of their achievement. "We did it," she whispered, against all odds. "We truly did it." Their kiss was a fierce, claiming declaration, sealing their triumph with a tangible union. Around them, the vault's crystalline treasures pulsed with an approving luminescence, as if the ancient Kethvar themselves bestowed their blessing upon this confluence of species and souls. Yet their moment of victory was shattered by the rumble of approaching engines. Thorn's fleet had arrived, and the true conflict was imminent. The treasure's central energy core hummed to life with a deep resonance that seemed to permeate the very fabric of space, projecting a vast, three-dimensional galactic map that filled the chamber. Stars drifted in slow motion, trade routes glowed with golden light, and amidst it all, the concealed locations of a dozen Kethvar treasure fleets materialized for the first time in 3 centuries. Cadence stood captivated by the display, his formidable pattern recognition abilities working at peak capacity to decipher its implications. Each fleet's position was deliberate, forming a defensive network designed to protect something at the galaxy's core. An entity the map highlighted with pulsing crimson light, the Cathar Nexus. Ivara breathed, her voice thick with reverence. The legends spoke of it, a construct capable of shaping stellar formations. But Cadence's focus narrowed to more immediate threats. The map revealed not only current ship placements, but also historical data, and the findings were dire. Thorn's fleet was no mere collection of mercenaries. It was the vanguard of a far greater force, comprising advanced corporate battle groups and imperial fleets. Task forces, even rogue AI collectives, were converging on their location. He realized every time they'd activated ancient technology, they'd unwittingly sent out a beacon, drawing Kethvar energy signatures. Before Ivara could respond, the chamber's communication systems crackled to life. Elder Vexthara's weathered face appeared, her silver fur marking her as a senior member of the Thaknari ruling council. "Daughter of my heart," the elder's voice, carrying crystal clarity across light years, announced their receipt of the transmission. "The matrices you've discovered hold enough power to cleanse not just our star, but to forge a new era of interspecies cooperation." More faces materialized. Admiral Connor of the Terran Defense Force, Ambassador Thorix of the Citation Collective, and the enigmatic Synthesis representing AI communities. Word of the Cathvar treasure had spread, igniting galactic interest. "The old ways are dying," Elder Vexthara continued, her ancient eyes finding Ivara. "The corporate wars, territorial disputes, the cycle of violence that brought us to the brink. This discovery offers a chance to build, not destroy." Caden felt Ivara's fingers intertwine with his, the enormity of their find dawning. This wasn't just about her people, but reshaping the galactic order. "The Nexus requires representatives from multiple species to activate," Admiral Connor explained, his face etched with the strain of fleet coordination. "No single race can claim dominion. It was designed to prevent the conflicts that have plagued us for centuries." "And if we refuse?" Ivara asked, her tactical mind racing. "Thorn's corporate backers will claim the technology," Ambassador Catherix replied, her translator rendering complex emotional harmonics. "They've already shown their willingness to use violence." The choice was stark, the implications staggering. Agreeing meant entrusting the galaxy's future to generations of enemies. Refusing meant condemning billions to war and exploitation. Caden met Ivara's gaze, his own thoughts mirrored in her amber eyes. "What does your heart tell you?" she asked, after a long, quiet moment, her tail coiling around his leg. "My daughter deserves to grow up in a galaxy where cooperation is possible. where strength comes from unity, not conquest," she declared with absolute certainty, her grip tightening. "We do this together." As representatives coordinated, Kaidan focused on Ivara, her lips tracing the scars on his knuckles, a gesture of intimacy deeper than any alliance. "This changes everything," she murmured. "Once the Nexus is activated, once the galaxy sees what's possible, there's no going back." "Good," he replied, bringing her hand to his lips. "Some things are worth changing the universe for." As fleets converged and the Kuthvar technology prepared to shift the balance of power, these unlikely lovers stood at the epicenter, their bond the catalyst, their love the foundation for a new age. The galaxy would never be the same. The final confrontation erupted in the void, ancient fleet graveyards providing cover for the most desperate battle in recorded history. Thorn's corporate armada, a steel plague bearing symbols of Helix Corporation, Meridian Industries, and the Terran Colonial Authority, stretched across the darkness, their combined firepower capable of sterilizing star systems. Against this overwhelming force stood an impossible alliance. Ivara's clan ships, Terran Defense Force cruisers, Citation biovessels, AI collective drones, and dozens of smaller craft representing species united for cooperation. At the center, the Kuthvar Nexus slowly awakened, a construct defying easy description, part space station, part living organism, part pure mathematics, its crystalline nation surfaces pulsing with energies that made nearby stars flicker. "Nexus activation at 60%, reported Dr. Sarah Kim from the Alliance command ship. "But Thorn's forces are closing fast. We need more time." Kaidan studied the tactical display from the bridge of Ivara's flagship. Vera's clan vessel, the Razor's Edge, faced a grim reality. Their numbers were drastically outnumbered, outgunned 3-1 by the corporate fleet. Their formation a desperate tactic to prevent any singular ship from reaching the Nexus intact. "There's another path," he voiced softly, his gaze locking with Ivra's across the command center. The Nexus desperately needed an immense energy surge to fully activate. If someone could initiate a catastrophic failure within the corporate fleet's main reactor, the implications were dire and understood by all. The resulting explosion would be catastrophic, powerful enough to ignite the Nexus, but the vessel delivering it would be utterly annihilated. "No," Ivra's reply was stark, absolute. "We will find another way." Yet even as she spoke, Thorn's forces launched their final, devastating assault. Plasma cannons ignited the void like man-made stars, and the initial wave of Alliance ships buckled under the onslaught. The Starlight Dancer, carrying a full complement of cetacean delegates, shattered in a horrifying spectacle of escaping atmosphere and roaring flames. "I have to do this," Cadence declared, his hands already moving to the helm's controls. "The Alliance needs the Nexus active, and your people need you to lead them through what's to come." "I won't let you," Ivara snarled, her claws extending as she moved to intercept him, her plea echoing, "There must be another way." "Look at the numbers," he replied gently, capturing her hands, his voice filled with a quiet strength. "You're the warrior. You know when a sacrifice is vital." For a fleeting moment, they remained frozen, a pocket of stillness amidst the surrounding pandemonium. Her amber eyes searched his face, imprinting every detail, every scar that bore witness to his years among the derelicts. "You promised me forever," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion, "and I meant every word." His thumb caressed the intricate pattern of her markings, marveling at their luminescence, a testament to her inner fire. "But sometimes," he explained, "forever means ensuring the people you cherish have a future to inhabit." Before she could voice another objection, he triggered the ship's emergency systems. Blast doors slammed shut, severing their connection to the helm, which now responded only to his unique biometric signature. Through the reinforced viewport, he saw her pounding against the barrier, her face contorted with anguish. The Razor's edge surged forward like a predator, its engines screaming as Kaidan pushed them beyond all conceivable safety limits. Corporate vessels converged to block their path, but his 16 years spent mastering dead technology had prepared him for this moment. The clan vessel weaved through their ranks with liquid grace, too swift and unpredictable to target effectively. Thorn's flagship, the colossal dreadnought Corporate Destiny, loomed ahead like a colossal metal mountain, its reactor core pulsing with barely contained fusion fire, precisely the unstable energy source Cadence needed to initiate the cascade. "Unknown vessel, alter course immediately," crackled the transmission from the dreadnought's captain. "I know," Kaidan replied, his voice betraying none of the fear gnawing at his insides. "Tell my daughter I love her." The Razor's edge impacted the dreadnought's reactor housing at nearly the speed of light, and for an instant, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, physics reasserted itself with a cataclysmic violence, transforming matter into pure energy, birthing a miniature star that outshone every other celestial body in the system. The shockwave struck the Nexus like an unstoppable tsunami of power, awakening the ancient construct with dormant energies that had slumbered for millennia. Across the galaxy, Cathvar technology began to resonate in harmonies that transcended all species, offering knowledge and power to any civilization wise enough to embrace cooperation over conflict. Ivra caught him as his escape pod tumbled through the wreckage, her own ship's tractor beam pulling him to safety even as tears streamed down her face. He was unconscious, his body ravaged by radiation, but alive, barely. "You impossible, brilliant fool," she whispered, cradling his head as the medical team rushed to his side. "Did you truly believe I would let you face that sacrifice alone?" The pod's emergency beacon revealed the truth. She had modified it in the critical seconds before his impact, employing the same extraordinary engineering that defined their partnership. The beacon had generated a localized stasis field, preserving his life through the cataclysm and granting the medical team invaluable time. As the Alliance fleets began to lower their defenses and news of the Nexus's activation rippled across the galactic communications network, Ivra held the human who had irrevocably altered their destiny. His sacrifice had become an instant legend. His love, a beacon of hope in a universe too often consumed by darkness. Peace was attainable. Unity was within reach. And sometimes, love truly did conquer all. In the years that followed, as the galaxy slowly learned to collaborate instead of clash, children would sing songs about the human salvager and the alien hunter who chose each other against overwhelming odds. Their story served as a poignant reminder that the universe's most precious treasures were not forged from crystal or metal, but from the profound bonds that connected one soul to another. Across the vast emptiness of space, in a humble dwelling upon a world reborn, where skies shone clear and futures gleamed, a tiger-striped woman and a scarred human nurtured their daughter, their love a testament to its galaxy-shaping power. The very stars seemed to smile upon the quietude of their reclaimed world, a soothing balm after the clamor of starship engines and plasma fire that had once defined their existence. Kaidan, settled on the porch swing, felt the gentle caress of the warm, clean air. Years had unfurled since the Cathar Nexus awakened. Years since the galaxy began its arduous, yet hopeful, march towards unity. The scars on his hands, once markers of a solitary salvager's life, now spoke of an impossible journey and an even more improbable love found beside him. Avara, humming a soft, melodic tune, her tail swaying rhythmically, meticulously polished crystalline matrices. These fragments of the Cathvar treasure which had rescued her people and ushered in a new galactic dawn, pulsed with a gentle inner light. Her tiger stripes, once symbols of her fierce warrior lineage, now softened, interwoven into a life woven with peace and profound connection. Their home, a sprawling organic structure that seemed to meld with the landscape, celebrated their merged lives. Human technology seamlessly blended with Thaknari artistry, creating spaces of both exquisite beauty and effortless function. It was here, on this serene world, far from the galactic fray, that their forever truly began. "You're quiet tonight," Ivor observed, her keen amber eyes, sharp as a predator's, meeting his. Caden chuckled, reaching out to thread his fingers through her soft fur. Just contemplating it all, how utterly mad it was, and how incredibly right. She leaned into his touch, a deep, rumbling purr vibrating from her chest. Right against all logic, all odds. He drew her closer, pressing a kiss to her brow. The scent of her, a wild fusion of ozone and something uniquely alien, was as comforting and familiar as his own heartbeat. Their daughter, Kira, now 17 by human reckoning, burst onto the porch, her movements a fluid grace, a blend of human agility and Thaknari swiftness. Her dark hair, Caden's legacy, was streaked with subtle, shimmering patterns hinting at her mother's markings. Her eyes, a striking fusion of amber and gray, missed nothing. "Mom, Dad, the latest data stream from the Nexus just arrived," she announced, her voice bright. "Elder Vexthara is activating Phase 3 stellar reclamation protocols for Sector Gamma 7. They project full planetary healing within 2 solar cycles." Avara's purr deepened, a sound of immense satisfaction. 12 million souls saved. You're home, Kira, truly alive again. Kira beamed, her hybrid nature a living testament to their bond, a bridge between their species. Fluent in both Thaknari harmonics and Terran common, her grasp of galactic politics matched her mother's tactical acumen, while her aptitude for ancient technology was a direct inheritance from her father. She had already forged her own path within the burgeoning Galactic Alliance, mediating conflicts and translating Kethar data for nascent colonies. "And the new trade routes through the Nexus cores are stabilizing," Kira continued, her voice alight with excitement. "Admiral Connor is pushing for a joint Terran-Thakari exploration mission into the uncharted sectors beyond the Perseus Arm. He wants you, Dad, to consult on the salvaged navigation systems." Caden raised an eyebrow at Ivara. "Sounds like retirement might have to wait a little longer, my love." Ivara's tail curled playfully around his leg, a gentle warning. "We agreed, Caden. No more deep space derelicts unless it's absolutely unavoidable. And certainly no more encounters with trigger-happy smugglers." "Jackson Thorne still sends me postcards," Caden joked, though the memory of their bitter conflict still held a faint edge of danger. Thorne, after his capture and reformation through the Nexus's re-education protocols, had discovered his purpose as an interstellar logistics coordinator, ironically channeling his former smuggling networks into humanitarian aid. Even the universe's villains, it seemed, could find redemption. "Only because you insisted on giving him your forwarding address," Ivara retorted, her eyes sparkling with amusement. Their lives were punctuated by these playful exchanges, quiet acknowledgments of the extraordinary journey they had shared. As dusk began to paint the sky in hues of violet and deep orange, another figure ambled onto the porch. This was Kale, their son, 5 years Kira's junior. Kale was a study in contrasts, his features softer than his mother's, yet possessing the lean build of a Thaknari. His hair was a striking blend of black and silvery stripes, and though he held his father's quiet intensity, his eyes conveyed the deep, knowing gaze of a born empath. "Mom, Dad, Kira," Kale said, his voice calm, almost preternaturally so. The small saplings in the lower grove are thriving, their root systems already double the projected size, responding beautifully to the new nutrient cycle. Kale, unlike his older sister, found his fascination not in the celestial expanse, but in the vibrant world beneath their feet. He possessed an extraordinary knack for communing with plant life, sensing the subtle lifeblood flowing within the planet. He trained with the Thaknari bioengineers, learning ancient planetary healing techniques that harmonized with the Nexus's greater endeavors. He was their quiet strength, the grounding presence in their often extraordinary family. "That's wonderful, son," Caden said, his hand ruffling Kale's striped hair. "You possess a true gift." Avara watched Kale with a profound tenderness that rarely surfaced from beneath her warrior's facade. "He brings life, a powerful gift indeed." As the family embraced the quiet rhythm of the evening, the air grew rich with the aroma of Thaknari stew simmering on a vintage human-designed stove. Kira, with a rapid-fire download of galactic politics and technological advancements, recounted the latest news. Meanwhile, Kale shared his observations on the growth patterns of newly introduced flora, his voice soft yet insightful. Caden listened, interjecting anecdotes from his salvaging days, now sounding like echoes of ancient history, while Avara offered practical advice and subtle wisdom drawn from her deep connection to her clan and people. Their family was more than just a fusion of two species. It was a powerful testament to shared purpose and unwavering love. They had navigated the intricacies of interspecies communication, the nuances of cultural differences, and the occasional fiery clashes born from two fiercely independent souls. Yet through it all, the bedrock of their connection had never faltered. Caden often pondered the sheer improbability of their initial meeting, a salvager and a bounty hunter drawn together by a derelict ship and a lost treasure. It had been a desperate fight for survival, a forced alliance that had blossomed into something far more profound than either had ever envisioned. He remembered the sensation of Avara's body pressed against his, within collapsing corridors, the fierce intensity in her amber eyes as she confessed her desperate need to save her clan, the taste of starlight and promises in their first true kiss. Avara, in turn, frequently reflected on Caden's quiet fortitude, his unshakable calm amidst chaos, his innate understanding of systems, be they mechanical or emotional. He had seen beyond her warrior exterior, past her predatory instincts, to the vulnerability and profound love concealed within. He had been the steady anchor she hadn't realized she needed, the human who revealed that her world needn't be dictated by the relentless cycle of hunting and fighting. He taught her that sometimes the greatest strength resided in connection, in vulnerability, and in the choice to build rather than destroy. Their children were living proof of this evolution. Kira, with her boundless energy and sharp intellect, embodied the future of cooperation, seamlessly blending the finest aspects of both their worlds. Kale, serene and deeply attuned to the planet's living pulse, represented the healing and renewal now within reach. They were not merely a family, they were a living bridge, a testament that love could forge new paths, even for species once estranged, even for a galaxy steeped in conflict. As the first stars began to prick the twilight, casting long, silvery shadows across the porch, Caden felt a contentment deeper than any he had known in his solitary life. The journey had been long, fraught with peril and sacrifice, but gazing at the woman beside him, her head resting on his shoulder, and then at their remarkable children, he knew with absolute certainty that every single moment had been worth it. The universe remained vast, brimming with unexplored wonders and challenges yet to face, but they would confront them together, as a family united by a love that had defied logic, transcended species, and ultimately reshaped the very stars themselves. Their story was no longer just a legend whispered in ancient starports. It was a vibrant, breathing testament to the most potent force in the galaxy, the enduring, impossible, and utterly beautiful bond between two souls who had truly found their forever.